My name's Nancy, and this is the story of the night my life split in two. The night I stopped trying to earn a seat at a table that was never built for me. I'm 27, and I learned two things at my sister's wedding. 1. Sparkling water still burns if you swallow it with humiliation. And 2. Sometimes freedom doesn't come wrapped in courage. It comes wearing a cocktail dress and a bad smile. The country club sat just outside Indianapolis, one of those places that smelled like polished wood and inherited certainty. Kelsey, my sister, looked like a magazine page that had never been folded. 3 open bars, a photo booth shaped like a greenhouse, monograms stitched into napkins too soft to be real. If you listened close, you could actually hear money exhale. I sat at the family table. Mom's porcelain stare. Dad's measured affection. A few in-laws who said they remembered me as a child, which is really just a polite way of saying you used to take up less space. We were never the airport hug kind of family. We believed in transactions, deals you could sign, ledgers you could hold. When I needed a small loan for my final semester, after grants, after 30 hours a week at my campus job, after convincing myself I could handle it alone, Dad didn't hesitate. He printed a contract. 10% interest. 1-year term. Failure to repay clause. Not a gift, a deal. He even watched me initial every page, like he was notarizing my own disappointment. Meanwhile, Kelsey flunked freshman year, wrecked her car, and got a shinier one before the week ended. No contract. Just a cake that said welcome home, bright girl. That's our dynamic. The kind of truth everyone knows, but no one says out loud. I hadn't told them yet that I was leaving Indiana. Not just leaving, erasing. On my laptop sat a folder named Event Stuff, in case anyone snooped. Inside it, job postings, a spreadsheet of faraway cities, and a budget titled Oxygen. Not even Lucas knew. We'd been together a year. The kind of steady good that feels like remembering a password you made on a kind day. He was working a rotation 2 states over, texting me pictures of undercooked chicken from motel dinners and asking if I'd eaten. His ex, Naomi, still floated around the edges, sweet, careful, the kind of woman who remembered anniversaries that weren't hers. I told myself she was background noise. I tried to believe it. Dinner was almost over when Dad stood up with his glass and tapped his fork against it. The sound sliced the room, clean, practiced. He started sweet. They always do. Love is hard work. Proud of the bride. A home built on trust. He glanced toward Kelsey and her new husband. Family money pressed into their cufflinks. And then he let the real speech out. Some kids make you proud, he said. Others just take up space. It landed like a sitcom joke, laughter in small, guilty clumps. Even Kelsey giggled, the kind of laugh people use to prove they're on the safe side of the line. Mom didn't blink. She never wasted the good china of her expressions. Something clicked inside me, not rage, not yet. More like a door in an empty hallway finally choosing a hinge. I lifted my glass, met his eyes, and said clear enough to cut the tablecloth. Good thing I just got my own place 2,000 miles away. Don't worry, you'll never see me wasting space again. Silence. The most honest sound in any room. A waiter coughed. The bandleader pretended to retune a guitar that didn't need it. For a second, I saw something tremble in Dad's face. Like the mask didn't fit quite as well as he remembered. Then nothing. They let me stand. They let me leave. I walked out barefoot, heels dangling from my fingers, because dignity is lighter that way. The night air didn't smell like money. It smelled like grass in that moment right before a storm decides what kind it wants to be. Back at the hotel, the adrenaline burned off and left only a bright, steady calm. No crying. No mirror pep talk. Just the quiet math of a woman finished negotiating with a locked door. I opened the banking app Dad made me download when I borrowed that tuition money and sent the final payment. $362.18 memo. As agreed, he tracks every cent. So do I. No reply. Of course not. In our house, silence isn't absence. It's leverage. The next morning, Kelsey posted a frosting-smeared selfie in the family group chat. Best night ever. Mom replied with sparkles about perfect beginnings. It was almost impressive. The choreography of erasure. They treated my outburst like a dropped napkin. Step over it and keep dancing. My phone buzzed. Lucas. How's the fancy wedding? Eat real food. I sent a photo of the plate and a lie. It was fine, he replied with a half-awake selfie and the caption. I'm proud of you. even on boring days. I wanted to tell him everything, the toast, the transfer, the way my chest felt like a window finally opened. But the words stayed behind my teeth, waiting for a safer room. 2 days later, Mom called using her concerned voice, the one that wraps gauze around the knife. "Is everything okay, Nancy? Did something happen at the wedding?" I told her work was busy. I gave her nothing she could hold on to. Then came the classic family excuse. He didn't mean it like it sounded. He's old school about affection. "We've always supported you in our way." Support. In my family, that word always comes stapled to a receipt. I hung up and opened Event Stuff Portland, Boulder, Flagstaff, Asheville. At least 1,000 miles between me and whatever this was. I made columns. Cost of living, job market, weather, how far grief travels when it has to buy a plane ticket. I started selling things under a fake name, books, clothes, the blender that only ever made apology smoothies. Every passive-aggressive comment from Mom. $50 into the escape fund. Every jab from Dad while staring at his phone. 100. Leaving became arithmetic, and the numbers finally started liking me back. On the surface, I did the daughter routine, texted, smiled, showed up. But inside, I was already folding clothes into a suitcase no one else could see. 6 weeks after the wedding, Kelsey left me a voicemail, small, trembling. "Can we talk?" We hadn't really talked since the toast. She'd commented a heart under a photo of my dog. That was it. I waited a day before calling back, not to punish her, just to prove to myself that I could. She picked up fast, voice paper thin. "We've been fighting," she whispered. "He disappears. He says maybe we rushed. Maybe it was family pressure." I bit my tongue. What my face wanted to say was, "You married a resume in a tuxedo, but that would have been too easy." Then she said, "Can you help me pack?" I asked her to repeat it. She wanted to move out, back home. "Just for a bit," she said. "I can't afford the place alone." She hadn't told Mom or Dad yet. "I don't want to hear the speeches," she whispered. "I can't be perfect and wrong at the same time." That stopped me cold. Golden children aren't supposed to know the weight of gold. I should have said no. Boundaries are cleaner on paper. But the tremor in her voice was one I recognized. The sound of a younger me holding a loan contract and calling it help. "I'll come," I said. Her apartment looked half erased. Wedding photos still sealed in envelopes. Cabinets that never learned her dishes. We packed in silence. When she folded a dress with the tag still on, she murmured without looking at me, "You were right to get out." I didn't answer. Some things are too fragile for words. We finished fast. She hugged me, really hugged me, like someone who'd just learned how. I left before our parents arrived. I didn't want to watch them rehearse sympathy like a second language. On the drive home, I added $500 to the escape fund and renamed the spreadsheet Oxygen, not Permission. That week, an email popped up from a creative agency in Portland. Interview request. High paying. Fully remote. The kind of offer people call out of your league until you win it. The morning of the interview, Mom called 4 times before I finished my coffee. My stomach did its old ferry boat sway. I turned the phone off. The interview felt like a room with open windows. They'd read my work. They asked where I saw myself in 5 years. "Owning my days," I said, not asking for permission to breathe. When it ended, I just sat there, still, quiet, not apologizing for taking up space in my own chair. Then the phone lit up. 7 missed calls. A text from Kelsey. "Don't come home." I called immediately. Her whisper cracked through the line. "Mom found your spreadsheet, the list of cities, the escape plan. She told Dad you're plotting to humiliate them. They're waiting for you." Doors closed. My throat went dry. "How?" "She went through your laptop when you were downstairs. Said she was checking the battery." Of course she did. "They're furious," Kelsey said. "Dad's pacing. Mom's crying. Nancy, don't come back. Please." Her breath trembled. Mine matched it. "Thank you," I whispered. "Be careful," she said, and the line went dead. I stared at the wall for a long time, realizing what I already knew. In our house, privacy was never a right. It was a test they thought you'd always fail. And for the first time, I decided not to take it. That's where part 1 ends, right at Nancy's breaking point, when the plan to leave stops being a dream and becomes survival. Next comes part 2, where she executes that escape, the offer, the confrontation, the suitcase at dawn, and finally the peace she finds in Portland. After that call from Kelsey, I didn't move for a long time. The room felt like it was holding its breath. I couldn't eat, couldn't think, just sat there refreshing my inbox every few minutes, waiting for something that felt like a way out. And at 4:07 p.m., it came. Subject: offer, creative strategist role, Portland office. My eyes blurred before I even finished reading. A real offer. Remote position. Full salary. Health benefits. The kind of stability my parents had always dangled like a reward for obedience. I forwarded it to myself twice, backup insurance against bad luck, then stood up, pacing. I wanted to call Lucas first. He'd understand. He picked up on the second ring. "I got it," I said, almost breathless. He laughed, a proud, warm sound that softened everything inside me. "I knew you would," he said. "I'm proud of you, Nancy. You earned this." I smiled. "Thanks." Then his tone shifted. "Your mom called me this morning." The floor went still. "She what?" "She said she was worried. Asked if you were okay. Said you've been isolating yourself." He hesitated. "She also mentioned Portland." I closed my eyes. "So they'd reached him too." "You knew?" I asked quietly. "I wanted to hear it from you," he said. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I took a breath. Because every time I've trusted someone with a plan, they've turned it into an argument. But what I said out loud was, I needed to make sure it was real before I let anyone hold it. He was silent for a moment. Then, "I get that." Before I could exhale, another message popped up. "Naomi. Congrats on Portland, Nancy. That's huge. Just remember, long distance is hard." I learned it the messy way. I stared at the screen, my pulse heavy. She wasn't supposed to know. He must have mentioned it innocently. Still, her tone. It felt like someone standing too close to my window. I typed and deleted 5 replies before choosing the most powerful one. Silence. That night, I went into full lockdown mode. Deleted the event stuff folder. Cleared my browser history. Backed up everything onto a small USB I could hide inside my luggage. My room looked staged, sterile, unfamiliar. Every few minutes, I glanced at the open suitcase in the corner. It wasn't luggage anymore. It was a lifeboat. Then came 3 soft knocks on my door. Not Mom's. Kelsey. She slipped inside. Eyes red but steady. "They think you're asleep," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here." "I know. I needed to see you before you go." Her voice cracked. I wanted to hug her, but in our family, hugs are weapons, used later as proof that love once existed. So I just said, "I'll call when I'm safe." She nodded. "Lucas called earlier. He asked if you needed a place to stay." Mom overheard. "She told Dad you were planning to run away with him." I let out a bitter laugh. They make everything sound like a scandal instead of survival. Kelsey took a shaky breath. "They're angry because they don't own your story anymore." Her words landed heavy, small but true. "I can handle anger," I said softly. "I just can't handle pretending it's love." She smiled softly. "Then don't." Before leaving, she reached into her pocket and handed me a folded note. "Open this after you leave." When she was gone, I tucked it into my bag. Didn't open it. Didn't dare. At midnight, the house was silent except for the hallway clock. My phone buzzed again, Mom. "Come home, Nancy. We can talk like adults." Then Dad. "Don't make a mistake you can't undo." Their words used to sound like authority. Now they just sounded like fear. I powered the phone off and stared at my open suitcase. Inside, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts that made me look like I hadn't forgotten myself, my laptop, the USB, and a small notebook labeled Next Chapter. I zipped it shut, breathing through the tremor in my hands. Some goodbyes happen with fireworks. Mine would happen with a closed door and a quiet cab at dawn. When I woke up, the world was still blue with early light. The house slept. The refrigerator hummed its same old rhythm, steady, mechanical, unaware that everything inside these walls was about to forget me. I took my bag and slipped out through the side door, the one I used to sneak out of as a teenager when silence was my only rebellion. The taxi waited at the curb, headlights dimmed. I looked back once, not at the house, but at the window of my old room. I whispered, "That's all you get." The driver didn't ask questions. We rode in silence. The streets were empty, the kind of emptiness that feels like permission. When we reached the airport, I found a seat by a window and finally opened Kelsey's note. Nancy, if you're reading this, you actually did it. I'm proud of you, even if Mom says I shouldn't be. Don't come back for me. I'll find my own way out. Love, Kels. The paper shook in my hands, not from guilt, but recognition. The cycle was breaking, and she knew it too. I folded the note and slipped it into my journal. I wasn't going to save everyone. I just needed to stop drowning with them. 2 hours later, while waiting to board, Lucas called. Hey, he said softly. You okay? I'm at the airport. You didn't tell me you were leaving today. It wasn't safe to wait. Do you want me to come to Portland? He asked after a pause. I wanted to say yes. But the truth was, I needed to prove to myself, not anyone else, that I could land somewhere and stand still without building my world around someone else. Not yet, I said. Let me start this one alone. Okay, he whispered. But I'm here. Always. For once, always didn't sound like a chain. It sounded like peace. Pause. When I landed in Portland just before noon, the air smelled different. Wet cedar, roasted coffee, the kind of air that forgives. The apartment I rented was small, 1 bedroom, cracked tiles, a view of a parking lot, but it was mine. The silence here wasn't judgmental. It was still. That first night, I unpacked slowly. Jeans, laptop, notebook. Then I placed Kelsey's note in the kitchen drawer under the cutlery, a quiet reminder that leaving isn't betrayal. Sometimes, it's the only honest act of love. Later, I sat down to write a letter to the version of myself who had spent years trying to be good enough. Dear old Nancy, you did everything right. You worked hard. You stayed kind. They just mistook your endurance for obedience. You're allowed to go. I didn't send it. Just saved it as a draft. Some things don't need an audience. A week later, the agency confirmed my hiring. Remote position. Flexible hours. Competitive salary. When I changed my bank info and closed the old joint family account, the one Dad insisted on, that single digital click felt more final than any goodbye hug. Right on cue, a text came from Mom. We're having dinner this weekend. Kelsey's home. It would mean a lot if you came. Attached. A photo of the family dining table set for 4, an empty chair at the end. I stared at it for a long time. The irony almost made me laugh, inviting me back to the scene of every quiet war. I typed, I can't. I have plans. She replied instantly. With who? I smiled. Myself. That weekend, instead of sitting through another performance of The Perfect Family, I sat by my apartment window with a bowl of soup and a cheap candle. Outside, the city hummed, alive, indifferent, free. I thought about that house in Indiana, Mom's polished silverware, Dad's heavy silences, Kelsey's brave half smile. I didn't hate them. I just refused to live inside their story anymore. A month passed. The phone stopped making me flinch. The family group chat became just another feed I never checked. Life here was imperfect. The radiator hissed. My downstairs neighbor played bad guitar. The rain sometimes made me homesick, but it was mine, and mine was finally enough. Work thrived. My ideas landed. My boss said I had a steady fire. After years of signing contracts for love, being trusted without conditions felt unreal. But peace tests you too. One night, my phone lit up again. Kelsey, they're talking about you again. I hesitated, then replied, Same old script? Kind of, she wrote. Dad said you'll come around. Mom said you're being dramatic. I told them you're happier. I could picture it. My name passed around like a ghost that refused to rest. Don't defend me, I texted. Just live your life. That's enough. I am, she said. Actually, I've been looking for jobs in Chicago. I'm done waiting for their approval. I smiled through the dark. Maybe freedom was contagious. A few days later, Lucas emailed. Flight booked. Coming to see you this weekend, unless you've changed your mind. I hadn't. When he arrived, soaked from the Portland drizzle, he carried 2 coffees and that same crooked smile that once anchored me through chaos. We walked downtown, no plans, no script, just the hum of the city and the sound of our shoes on wet pavement. You seem lighter, he said. I stopped negotiating with guilt. I told him. He laughed softly. How's that working out? Feels like learning to breathe underwater, I said. Awkward, but survivable. You really did it, he said. You actually left. Not just left, I said. I stayed gone. Later, sitting in my small living room, he looked around. This place suits you. I nodded. It's the first one that does. We didn't need to talk after that. His presence wasn't a rescue, it was a witness. Before leaving, he handed me a small envelope. Naomi wanted me to give you this, he said, careful. I raised an eyebrow. Seriously? She apologized. He said she was out of line. Said she advised your courage. I didn't open it, just dropped it in the trash. Some stories don't deserve an epilogue. Weeks passed. The rain softened. I found rhythm, work, walks, therapy on Thursdays. One Sunday morning, a voicemail arrived. Kelsey again. Her voice was calm this time. Hey, Nance. I got the job. Chicago. Mom cried, though I think it's more about losing control than missing me. Anyway, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't watched you first. You were right. Leaving isn't cruel. It's how we stop pretending. Love you. I listened twice. The second time, I didn't cry. I just smiled and whispered, I love you too. Then I opened my window. The air smelled like rain and rosemary from the neighbor's balcony. Somewhere far off, a train horn echoed, a sound that once meant escape, but now just sounded like life continuing. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and looked down at the quiet street below, and I realized something. This was the final act. Not confrontation, not revenge, just the absence of fear. You can't argue with someone who's no longer playing the game. You can't guilt a person who's already made peace with being misunderstood. So if anyone ever asks where I went, tell them this. I didn't run away. I just stepped out of their story and started writing my own.